I seek refuge in Allah, the All-Hearing, the Omniscient, from the cursed Shaitan. In the name of Allah, the Most Merciful, the Most Compassionate. Praise be to Allah, Lord of all worlds, and blessings and peace upon His noblest messenger, Muhammad, and upon his pure household. As for the day of resurrection, we and our household will take the place of our Shia, so that we may be on the heights between heaven and the hellfire. Muhammad and Ali and Fatima, Hassan and Hussein, and the pure ones from his household, peace be upon them, so that we may see some of our Shia in those courtyards, and whoever among them had been neglectful and was in some of their hardships, i.e. some of the hardships of the courtyards on the height, we will send to them the best of our Shia, like Salman and Miqdad and Abu Dhar and Ammar and their like, in their time, and those who followed them in every time until the day of resurrection. And they will swoop down upon them like hawks and falcons, and they will pick them up just as hawks and falcons pick up their prey, and they will see them off to heaven the way that brides and grooms are seen off at their wedding. And we will send to others among those who love us the best of our Shia, such as Hammam, and they will pick them up from the courtyards just as a bird picks up a seed, and they will transfer them, they will carry them to the gardens, i.e. the gardens of paradise, into our presence. And one of our Shia who had been neglectful will be brought. One of our Shia who had been neglectful in his deeds will be brought forward. And after his wilaya, his taqiyya, and his what he has done in relation to the rights of others will be gathered up and put in its place, and 100 or more of those deeds will be stood there, and equivalent to them, i.e. the same number of nasibis, will be brought, and it will be said to him, those, i.e. to the nasibis, those are your portion of the hellfire, and the believers will be put into heaven, and those nasibis will be put into the hellfire, and that is what Allah Mighty and Majestic said, i.e. a number of deeds, 100 or more, of one of the Imam's Shiites, one of the Shiites who has been neglectful in his deeds, will be brought forward, and that number of mu'mineen will be put into heaven, and that number of nasibis will be put into the hellfire according to the deeds. That is a reminder of the narration mentioned yesterday in relation to intercession, and we covered some of the verses of the Quran which dealt with the subject. As you will recall, some of these appeared at first glance to say that intercession is not allowed, but then we began dealing with those which showed quite clearly that intercession is actually permitted. You'll recall that the last such verse was from Surat Maryam, the one which said, "They will have no power of intercession save him who hath made a covenant with his Lord." And that's verse number 87. As you will recall, that covenant is wilaya, loyalty, devotion and love to Amir al-Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful, Ali, son of Abi Talib, peace be upon them. And so we move on now today to Surat al-Anbiya, the prophets, verse number 28. He knoweth what is before them and what is behind them, and they cannot intercede except for him whom he accepteth, and they quake for awe of him. Again, this verse is very clear. A select few or a select number of individuals are allowed to intercede on behalf of others, and as mentioned, they are prophets for their nations, i.e. previous prophets on behalf of their followers, those who followed their message. And we, in the time of the prophet and imams, or those what we follow the time of the prophet and the imams, and so they are the ones who will be able to intercede on behalf of us, because of course Islam is the religion of our time, so the prophet is the prophet of our time, and the imams are the imams of our time, so they are the ones who will intercede on our behalf, provided of course that we fulfill all the criteria, provided of course that we deserve intercession. And we of course pray to Allah, we ask Allah to grant us the intercession of the Prophet and Imams on our behalf. Next we have Surat Taha, verse number 109. As is well known, Taha is one of the names given to our blessed Prophet, peace be upon him and his family. Verse 109 reads, "On that day no intercession availeth save that of him unto whom the Beneficent hath given leave and whose word he accepteth." Again, the meaning is very similar to that in the previous verse, that intercession is limited to certain individuals. So then, again, we move on to Surat Saba, that is to say, the chapter entitled Sheba, verse number 23. "No intercession availeth with him save for him whom he permitteth. Yet when fear is banished from their hearts, they say, What was it that your Lord said? They say the truth, and he is sublime, the great." Again, the meaning is fairly self-explanatory. Similar words are said in relation to intercession in this verse. just as in Surah Az-Zumar, the groups. Verse number 44, say unto Allah belongeth all intercession. His is the sovereignty of the heavens and the earth, and afterward unto him ye will be brought back. Now this is of course one of the other group of verses or ayat which appears to say that intercession is Allah's domain only. Now it is his domain, but as is clear from the other verses, he allows others to intercede. And this is quite an interesting concept, that of ownership. True ownership of all things is Allah's domain. Allah owns everything. Everything belongs to Allah. Figuratively, we may own certain objects, certain land, certain possessions, but we must never lose sight of the fact that it all is the property of Allah. We may become custodians. We may be given the responsibility of certain things. And so it is for this reason that we should always give thanks, we should always be grateful to Allah for allowing us to benefit from everything that He allows us to. As for Surah Az-Zukhruf, ornaments of gold, verse number 86, and those unto whom they cry instead of him possess no power of intercession, saving him who beareth witness unto the truth knowingly. This verse is a reference to those people whom others had worshipped in the world. Other people had taken the individuals as gods or objects of worship. So clearly they are not gods. There is only one God. And so this verse does not say that in general, or as a general principle, intercession is not allowed. Rather, it is about a very specific subject, that of those taken as idols by others. The last verse which I wanted to deal with before moving on was is in the chapter entitled The Cloaked One, verse number 48. Then will no intercession of any intercessors profit them. Again, at first glance, it appears that intercession is forbidden by this verse. However, it's very important to look at the context. Now, the previous two verses, that is verses 46 and 47, read as follows: And we used to deny the day of judgment till the inevitable came unto us. So putting that all together with verse number 48, and we used to deny the day of judgment till the inevitable came unto us, then will no intercession of any intercessors profit them. So we can see that this verse actually deals with a particular category of people those who had been so stubborn in their rejection of the message brought to them, they refused to believe in the Day of Judgment right up until their deaths, and so they do not fulfill the criteria of intercession. As mentioned previously, we do have to believe in all the principles we are commanded to believe in, and we do have to maintain a certain amount of good behavior. We do have to follow Allah's commandments as far as we can within our power, and we have to show remorse for any sins which we may have committed. So, in summary then, there are a number of verses which appear to say that intercession is not allowed, but they are very heavily qualified by a larger number of verses which show that intercession is allowed. Certain individuals such as prophets and imams, especially our Prophet and our holy imams, peace be upon them, peace and blessings be upon them, are allowed to intercede upon those who love them and are loyal to them and obey the commands. That is to say, they obey Allah's commands which the messenger brought, which the imams explained and interpreted. It is at this point that I wish to return to a slightly more methodological approach to the subject, one perhaps favoured in the Islamic colleges and institutions. And the first part of such a study deals with the meaning of shafa'ah, that is to say intercession. So I want to come back to that point. Deals with the meaning of shafa'ah both linguistically and in terms of the technical meaning given to the word in the Quran and in the Hadith. We'll compare the meaning in our religious sources with the meaning of the word attributed to it by the reasonable man, or the ordinary meaning of the word. After that, we'll move on to some of the views expressed by ulama in the two main sects of Islam, the Shiite sect and the sect commonly known as the Sunni sect, but sometimes of course referred to as the Bakri sect. After that, we'll move on to a discussion of the objections raised by those who claim that intercession or shafa'ah is not allowed. And then, fourthly, we'll discuss the conditions which need to be met for a believer to deserve intercession, or for, to put that another way, the conditions which need to be met by a believer in order that the Prophet or the Imams will intercede on his behalf, his or her behalf. And then we'll look at some of the social aspects of the subject. Why is intercession part of the religion. We'll try to understand the purpose behind it, how it links us together, and how it also strengthens our love for the Prophet and for the Imams. And then finally we'll look at some of the fiercest opponents to our beliefs, that is to say the Salafis, and see what they have to say on the subject. I want to make a distinction here between Salafis who do take a very strict approach, or perhaps a very extremist approach, and ordinary Bakris or ordinary Sunnis who perhaps take a more moderate approach and who perhaps are closer in their beliefs to those of the successful group, that is to say the group that takes the Imams, peace be upon them, as their guide and as their path to the Prophet, peace be upon him and his household, who in turn is the path to Allah. So beginning then again with the meaning of shafa'a linguistically. Part of this study will of course be, is there a difference between shafa'a in Arabic and what is commonly understood by intercession in English? Or is intercession a very literal interpretation of the word shafa'a? Now, according to Ar-Raghib in his book known, or his dictionary known as Al-Mufradat, shafa is the root meaning. It's linking one thing, or uniting one thing to its like, and shafa is used for the mashfu' as well, the object, and shafa'a is joining something or linking something to another to help it and to ask on its behalf, and it's mostly used when something which is on a higher level or which has a greater sanctity is attached, linked to something of a lower level. In Lisan al-Arab, shafa is the opposite of witr. Shafa has the sense of even numbers, and witr has the sense of odd numbers or something which is on its own. So shafa is a pair or an even number, and witr is on its own or it's odd. So something is linked, or something is brought to join to another, and they become a pair. And we have shafi', which is also, well, I suppose it's a slightly exaggerated form of the word shafi', and the plural is shufa'a. We will continue this discussion in the next program.